Destruction All-Stars is a curious game. What started as a PS5 launch game retailing for $70, then getting pushed back to February and being made free via PlayStation Plus, the game clearly made a drastic change. Now with the game in our hands, it's pretty clear that this was not worth the original price of admission. Lucid Games, of Geometry Wars 3 fame, spent the majority of the last generation assisting other developers with various ports, as well as assisting Ghost Games on Need for Speed Payback. In the latter project, the game was criticized for unrealistic driving mechanics. Well, it seems the team over at Lucid decided to run with that, and drive. Destruction All-Stars is pure mayhem, pun intended. In the game, you have 4 modes. Mayhem, the main draw, sees 16 people going head-to-head, battling it out and attempting to cause as much damage to each other as possible. This includes wrecking into each other both on vehicles and on foot. This is what differentiates All-Stars from other vehicular combat games. That's only half the game. The other half sees people running around on foot, collecting shards to fuel power-ups such as your specific All-Stars hero vehicle or your specific breaker, an ability that allows you to move faster, achieve more acrobatic feats, and something else unique to each individual hero. You can also activate traps to mess with vehicles in the match, meaning you're not as useless as you might think when on foot. The second mode is called Gridfall, essentially All-Stars' version of Hexagon from Fall Guys. Here, 16 racers duke it out on a deteriorating platform with a limited number of lives, meaning you have to be much more methodical than in any other mode. This requires the most skill of any of the modes, and it's definitely a struggle to claim victory. Tornado is one of the 2 team modes in the game. It features 8v8 teams collecting gears by causing mayhem on the map, then depositing them via the massive tornado in the middle of the field. If your vehicle is destroyed, then you lose the gears. Well, while the mode is fun, there's very little room for team cooperation, which I'll go into more detail over later. Finally, there's Stockpile, a mode that I think deserves more love than it's getting. Another 8v8 mode, this game features gear collecting as well, but in a much different manner. Destroying vehicles entirely earns gears only specific to the team that destroyed the vehicle. Then, there are 3 control points on the map in which you can deposit them, but you can only do so on foot. The first team to control all 3 points wins. This allows for a little more cooperative strategy, but the game really has no foundation around teamwork, so this is really the bare minimum. Overall, this is a fun arcade game, and it's right at home on PlayStation Plus. The game is available free to claim with your subscription until April 2nd, so you have plenty of time to pick it up, but I'm very curious to find out how the game tries to operate when it requires a purchase to play. It is certainly not a $70 package, especially with its Challenge series. The Challenge series is similar to the arcade mode in Street Fighter. Each of the game's 16 All-Stars have their own small campaign, although this is focused on honing your skills with a specific character and utilizing their special abilities to their fullest, which is much appreciated. It also gives a little snack-sized story, pitting them against a rival All-Star and dropping little hints of backstory along the way. This would be nice if there weren't only 2 All-Stars campaigns available right now, and every one beyond Ultimos is locked behind a paywall. As of right now, the only way to unlock a character's challenge series is through destruction points, premium currency that can only be purchased by real-world money. Lucid Games has said they will incorporate a way to earn them in-game later in the year, which is fine, if not annoying. The game is essentially free to play right now, and they have to make money somehow. But if the game becomes available for purchase for whatever they plan to charge, and these points are still not earnable in-game, I'll be pretty severely upset. Let people spend more money if they want to, but don't lock story content behind a paywall when you're already charging people to play already. If there was already a free challenge series and this was added content, similar to DLC included in a season pass, I would be more susceptible to it, but we know nothing about these characters, and what's there is good, but it's not really enough to make me spend money on, but enough to make me grumble like this. As far as the main gameplay goes, however, I have a soft spot for hero-based multiplayer games. Overwatch is one of my all-time favorite games. But while the All-Stars have their charms here, there's a lot of work to be done. For one, some All-Stars' abilities are much more unique than others. For example, Blue Fang's hero vehicle has the ability to emit huge shredders at the front of the car that decimate enemy vehicles. Meanwhile, Hana's car can slice vehicles in 2 with a big blade. While they're aesthetically different, the ability is practically the same. There are plenty of other similarities within the All-Stars, and because of that, there's no real way to work together for team modes. Referring back to Overwatch, you could combine Zarya and Junkrat's ultimates to wipe out an entire team. Here, there's no real way to combine abilities as a team, making the teamwork essentially useless. If there ever happened to be ranked modes added to the game, while the solo modes could be acceptable, Carnado and Stockpile would fall apart under the foundation made by these underdeveloped characters. But I also don't want to completely condemn the game. Even Overwatch has undergone massive changes to certain characters, so I think there's plenty of hope for Lucid to turn things around if they put the work into it. The driving, however, is really solid. Like I said earlier, Lucid took the criticism of Need for Speed Payback to heart, and so instead of changing it, they just made it more fun. Driving around in Destruction All-Stars is a heckin' good time. There are 3 main types of vehicles tailored to speed, strength, or maneuverability. It offers a surprising amount of depth if you dig into it, but it's also simple enough to understand if you're no racing expert. You don't have individual stats for cars, and there's no upgrades or anything like that. You simply jump in and cause mayhem. Even the on-foot stuff is decent enough. While most people would probably agree it's not as fun as driving around in a fast vehicle, for those that want to get the most out of this game, there's a lot of strategy to it, especially in Stockpile. Learning how to properly evade vehicles and transition from an almost destroyed vehicle to a brand new shiny set of wheels efficiently takes some thinking, and when pulled off, it feels great. Each character also has their own breaker, a special ability similar to the one they have for their hero vehicle. In all honesty though, aside from a few notable characters, this does very little, and I almost always used it for the speed/acrobatics boost so I could get around quicker. There's also the big elephant in the room. It's PS5 exclusivity. This is one of the few games on the market that is truly next-gen exclusive, and the first multiplayer game to do so. Because of this, the player size is adequate. Peak times see no issues finding a game, which can be attributed solely to its availability on PS Plus, but there were multiple times during launch week where it would fail to find a match, leaving me with the Mayhem mode as the primary way to play. For my Call of Duty players, this is no new ordeal, as Team Deathmatch or Control are usually the only regularly populated servers just months after launch, but for a game's first few days, this provides an issue. Of course, I'm sure this is also due to the pandemic limiting PS5s in production, but a small population will only result in players dropping off, making the servers even smaller. There are some neat features to the PS5 though. Trigger resistance is consistently a factor, resulting in more effort being needed to drive the vehicle as you first take off and when it's at low health. There's also the voice chat thing. For those unaware, voice chat used to be turned on by default. However, because the DualSense features a mic, every match featured the potential for players screaming through your controller. The developers have now thankfully disabled this as the new default, meaning we don't have to manually mute the lobby every game anymore, but be aware that if you do decide to use voice chat, it could get rough out there. The game also runs relatively smooth, with the only noticeable dips occurring in the start of gridfall matches, going down into the low 50s in FPS. The game is not actually running at a native 4K resolution though. It is upscaled from a dynamic resolution from around 1296p to 1836p. It usually averages to about 75% of 4K. Now, the game still looks beautiful, but do keep in mind that you should take their promise of 4K 60 FPS with a grain of salt. The game has a fairly solid foundation. The solo modes are fun, arcadey action, and there's plenty of current-era multiplayer tropes to keep fans of the genre entertained for a short while. There's plenty of cosmetics to earn, though the progression system is extremely boring. I put about 8 hours in the game, and I never felt excited to really earn anything, but I'm not really one for cosmetics grinding anyway, so this may not be the majority opinion. But for long-term sustainability, Lucid needs to make the characters more cooperative and figure out their monetization strategy, because this just ain't it. Destruction All-Stars is not a bad game, but it could easily be a dead game if the developers do not course correct, similar to what they did just before the PS5 launch. Issues need to be worked out, but there is a really fun arcade game in the gears of this vehicle. I'm very interested to check back in with this game in a few months, because I think it has a fighting chance. But that only depends on how much the developers are committed to it. Let me know what you guys think of Destruction All-Stars down in the comments below. Like if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys next time for whatever it is I'm doing next. Alright, see ya.